Developer Education and Networking with Clark Sell.
The Azure DevOps podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. The podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm that's empowering software delivery for business-critical software projects. My architect forums are going strong. Signups for the next session are up. And if you lead a software team, if you're a lead architect, if you lead other developers, and you're looking to collaborate with other peer software architect leaders, just go ahead and sign up at the link in the show notes. There's tons of developer education material out there, but this is trying to fill the goal for people who are leading software developers. And also, if you're looking for Programming with Palermo, my video podcast, just go ahead and search in any of the directories and you'll be able to find it. So our guest today on the show is Clark Sell, the organizer of the VAT conference, those series, but from humble beginnings as a mechanic who later became a software engineer and architect. And of course, now he's a business owner. He's built software for some of the biggest companies on the planet. He is passionately unapologetic and on a mission to create the most inclusive, tech-savvy, family-friendly community of geeks on the planet. And he's fueled by creativity. He invests his time partnering with companies on how to foster their own communities while helping them solve business problems through innovative technology solutions and common sense. Clark Sell, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to have you on the show. I do want to ask you what it's like to be a conference organizer and all those things, but I want to go back so the listeners can kind of get to know you a little bit. You've been in the software space for a long time. You know, you got some gray hairs in your beard and whatnot. But if kind of go back in time, what are some of the big events that happened in your career that you kind of look back and it shaped you and kind of steered you in the direction of the things that you're working on these days?
Wow. Going in the Wayback Machine. I think back, I started in 98. Which I'm just going to put that out and just date the hell out of myself. And I think about we were going into the .com boom and we were on some large ass teams. And when I say large, I'm talking, they were multi-million-dollar, well, probably tens of $1,000,000 projects. They had 350 developers on them. These weren't even like working at Microsoft or one of those places. These were, insurance companies. And, I was really influenced by the team nature of things and working together with folks. Back then, it wasn't uncommon to work through the night or late nights. I know that doesn't happen as much anymore these days, but you certainly got your scars for trying to ship, and things were crazy back then. It was, the internet was a joke until it wasn't, and then we were all racing to figure out what we were going to do on it, who was going to sell what. And then as I, got further in my career, I can think of places like, which you may remember, Developmentor.
Oh yeah.
Remember, I was a student for many. And for those who don't know, it was, an intensive kind of 5-day class taught by the people writing the books. Like you went in and you got your hands dirty from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. And there, that kind of led me into user groups and events. I was trying, when you were chatting about events, I was trying to think of the Microsoft event that was centered around design.
Mix?
For the life of me, I can't.
Was it Mix?
Yeah. And it was just, it was different. And, conferences can get stuffy and all that. But I think of all those times, all the user groups, after the user groups, all the late nights with teams. I mean, those all had pretty big impact on my career moving forward. So
Yeah, the last 4 years have had a big difference. A lot of user groups have shifted how they operate. A lot of regional conferences, code camps, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the last 4 years have been hell. I would say the fact that we all got reset at the same time, if you will, has been interesting. A lot of user groups were not really set up to succeed in the aspect of maybe it was financially, maybe it was who was helping run them. And when the going got really tough, there wasn't much of a motivation to keep going, or they couldn't keep going.
Mm-hmm.
A lot used their own money for. I mean, I've got some friends who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were not let out of contracts
Mm.
and they got screwed. And those stories you don't hear, but it's had a drastic effect on a lot of things. And I mean, 4 years is a long time, especially in tech land. So there's a whole cohort of new people in tech who have don't even know what a user group is. They don't
Yeah,
even
that's true.
they've never heard of a meetup, never gone to a meetup. They started maybe in 2019 and then
Everything
went
stopped.
fully remote. Yeah, and that's not they're just unaware,
Yeah,
right? I mean, somebody else used to own Twitter 4 years ago. Think about that.
there
Like
you
it
go.
was a different place.
Well, you're one of the
So
leaders that's persevering. You're pushing through. You run a conference, and you've been a leader in the development community, getting people together. And you're one of those leaders who's pushed through. And I want to kind of get your experience in that. Hopefully, it'll be some inspiration to others. But for those listening who not even familiar with your conference series, just tell us about that. What does everybody need to know about your conference series?
yeah, so I founded a conference called That Conference in 2010. Our first event was in 2012. So there was a kind of a 2-year ramp up of how the hell do we do this?
Which
And
conference?
it was That Conference.
That conference.
It's actually called That Conference. It does not stand for anything. So no need to text me and ask. But the goal was simple: a family friendly polyglot tech conference. Could we learn from other stacks? Could we learn from one another in a multi-day format in a family friendly place where you could bring your family and they could have fun and kids could get exposure to tech, and you could be your kind of whole self, if you will. And we do it at a water park called the Kalahari. And today we run two. We run one in the Wisconsin Dells in the summer and one in Round Rock, Texas in January. And the spirit holds true, right? It's an opportunity for anybody in tech to get together and learn from one another and their discipline, if you will, whether that's testing, engineering, design, whatever, in the custom software space, right? We typically have a slant towards web related things, which at this point I think is everything in tech. Is there anything left if you just have an API endpoint to it?
Yeah. Okay. So, how many attendees do you like to have at these conferences? Because we're used to, Microsoft saying, "Oh, this one was 7,000 people. This one was 13,000 people." What's comfortable for that conference?
That is an interesting question. We have two now. Texas, we're coming up on our third event. And then Wisconsin, I think we just completed our 12th or 13th. I can't even remember. Different things happen at different stages, meaning if you had at an event a user group with 10, some may see that as a failure. Others may see that it could be your 10 closest friends who you go to battle with kind of every day. With numbers comes diversity, whether that's diversity in like what people do, diversity in background, diversity in industry. The more there are, the easier it may be to find folks that you want to be with or like or model, if you will. But it also brings a certain set of anarchy with it as well. When there's 1,800 folks on the show floor, that's a lot of activity. And there's a certain way to kind of navigate that and understand, and it can be overwhelming and intimidating and everything in between. Right now our Texas show is somewhere between 250 and 500 people, and the culture is kind of growing. It's being set by the people that are there, and there's some really deep relationships that are being formed because it's just smaller, and it's intimate, if you can say that, at, a few hundred people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, the other show is upwards of 1,000 or more. Now, I would say for me, we're a community-based thing. I would say my upper end is probably around the 2,000 mark.
Mm-hmm.
A show like reInvent or one of those that has 30,000 people. Like I've never been to anything like that. I can't comment on.
Sure.
I think it's almost too big. You then divide up into 1,000 little factions anyways. So I'm sure it has an incredible scale of activities. And I saw a tattoo booth, just recently at reInvent. Okay, cool. It's not really my gig, but
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any space left. Tattoo. Where am I? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, the largest I've been to was the 15,000 Tech Ed. I think it was in 2009. That was in Orlando, and it used both sides of the conference center. And I mean, you needed like a Segway just to get around from session to session.
Yeah.
All I remember was I don't know anybody, and I met a whole lot of people, but where are they today? And because you just see of people, and so it felt kind of anonymous. But you've got a philosophy about the way developers can learn, and certainly Microsoft and AWS and Google and GitHub, and they put on the big shows, right? Big massive corporate shows and whatnot, and it's sort of like a production. And then you got other smaller conferences, and you believe that getting manageable groups of developers together is a great way for them to become stronger as developers. But what are the forces surrounding that make it true?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want this to sound harsh because it'll come out harsh, but when you're going to a Microsoft event or Amazon or one of those where there's thousands of people, ultimately you're the product, right? They're trying to sell you something. Yes, it's sprinkled in with a little teaching, but the reality is there's a machine, right? They have product launches, they have things, they have press, they have media. There's a machine. Like you're going to go and they're going to send you, their email sequence and high fives and hope that you click a box. For us, I want to see you grow. I want to see you connect with people. We're a team of 4. We don't have corporate overlord. I'm not trying to sell you something. I want you to grow. Right. And that means I want to find the right practitioners who also share in that same spirit, such that you want to get involved with one another. You want to, the tech is what brings us together. What you can do in person, you can't do online. And, I know somebody's out there sitting, it's like, well, I can learn online. You can, right? You can meet a ton of people online.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in person, you can cement relationships, right? That's where you really bond. That's, you break bread. That's where the conversation can meander in places that we just do together better as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the two things go hand in hand. I think conferences and user groups, I'll kind of lump them into community-based efforts. I think they're vital to our industry and to the growth that people have. Otherwise, you kind of just get the same corporate stuff thrown at you. But this is a very creative industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's all the other stuff that happens? Where does the other war wounds come out as to why you did something? All that context that isn't rehearsed, right? You go to those big productions and it's ticked and tied. Some of those, keynotes, they have a person in back that's doing the same keynote in case it shits the bed. I don't have that. Like you're going to see the real thing. If the stage doesn't work, it doesn't work. There's no backup crew. It's the person who's on stage doing it. Yeah. So,
I have an experience to talk to that, even from some of the more focused conferences like Build, which is supposed to be, all about software. I suppose Ignite is the IT products. But when there are sessions other than about writing code, and there's a lot of them at Build and other bigger conferences, I find that most of the conference attendees are not programmers. And so for me and for all the developers out there who we want to meet other people, but we don't just want to meet people just to have more friends. We want to meet coders. We want to make people
Right.
who are
Yeah.
slinging the code
Yeah.
and slinging the
Yeah.
type of code that we are. And now we
Right.
can have those conversations. And
Yeah.
the conferences like that conference, and everybody there is programming.
Yes. Everybody there wants an outlet. That's a very interesting point that you brought up, because often when I talk with sponsors, it'll be conversations about decision makers and this person and that person, and versus these are actual practitioners,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, well, is there a decision maker? It's like, well, how do you qualify decision maker? Is it the person who's on the team who's like designing the architecture but doesn't wear the title? Like, yeah, like influence happens at so many levels within a development team.
Mhm.
Titles anymore these days are kind of difficult and useless, but influence happens all over the place. And for us, we want the practitioner. I don't, we all have something to learn from one another. Doesn't matter whether you're speaking, not speaking. It doesn't matter if you're in Python or .NET or whatever, JavaScript, doesn't really matter, right? They're all bits and bytes. We're making computers do shit, hopefully correctly. And we're trying to better humanity in some way.
I think what's interesting is that everybody's writing code. Like I'll sit in a restaurant in Austin and I'll hear the next table over somebody talking about how their SAN just had a problem and they had to replace half of the hard drives in one fell swoop and they almost lost all the data, but they didn't quite, but it was super stressful. I'm like, okay, they're in IT, great. But I can't have a conversation with them because you know what? I don't spike hard drives for a living and they don't write code. So yeah, we're in IT, but it's still meaningless.
The cloud was like the best thing ever for me, because I was like, I don't care about how to plug all that shit together. I just want my stuff to go there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I think conferences like that conference are so awesome because it's so focused. It's not just let's get techies together, let's get geeks together. It's like, no. And just like, let's get musicians together. So no. We're getting piano players together. The conversations they have are perfectly aligned.
Yes. I probably should do a better job on our website of illustrating exactly what you just said.
Yeah. It's like a musician conference. You're going to have people, like if I walk in with a guitar, I'm looking for the people with the guitar. If I walk in with a clarinet, I'm looking for people with the clarinet.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And we've always had that slant with the twist of it doesn't matter what stack, because I believe you need to have exposure to all of those things such that you can, what's in the toolbox, whether or not it's in your direct toolbox or something else. We all hear about this stuff. Oh, what's Rust? Well, here's an opportunity to learn about that very fast with somebody of some credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you walk into that room, here's a bunch of other people who are either interested in the same topic or the speaker, or maybe in the same position, and you immediately have a bond with them, right? You're already one step closer to a whole new tribe of people.
Yeah.
Many thanks to our podcast sponsor, ClearMeasure. ClearMeasure is a software architecture company that empowers clients' development teams to be self-sufficient, moving fast, delivering quality, and running their systems with confidence. Whether starting a new project or developing new technologies or techniques, ClearMeasure sets up your team to deliver world-class results. Learn more at www.clearmeasure.com. ClearMeasure, empowering software delivery. ClearMeasure is also happy to be a sponsor of the video podcast, Programming with Palermo. Watch, learn, and program alongside Chief Architect Jeffrey Palermo. Videos are added weekly and available on syndicated locations supporting video podcast or by visiting palermo.network. Tune in today.
Do you remember the first conference that you went to when you had no idea how these things were going to go? And because I'm thinking of the people who've never gone to a conference, or if they have gone to a conference, it was just you walk into some big room, you sit down, you listen to the talking head, you walk out, and I mean, you could have watched the whole thing on YouTube, and it wouldn't have been any different.
Yeah, I mean, my first and still, I just remember being scared as hell. I remember feeling like there's a whole lot of stuff going on. There's a whole lot of words flying past your face, and I'm not really sure how to take it in. Here's, if you stand on the outside, it can appear like everybody knows one another and this and that. But then I can sit here after whatever 12 years of doing this, 13, 11 years, I don't even know, 13 years of doing this. Everybody's in the same boat. Some people are just better with it than others, but everybody's scared to meet one another. It's always a kind of a little dance of like, some people know one another from either their local region or having been met at other conferences. But yeah, I mean, it's an overwhelming place to be.
And just about everybody who chooses talking to a computer in code as a profession is kind of on the introvert scale, right? I mean, that just goes with the job. And so everybody walks in, it's like, all right, I got to force myself to just have that first introduction talk and break the ice.
Yeah, it's funny because I think once that ice is broken, it's like the fire hose opened and it won't stop.
Yeah.
We say that we're introverted, but I think the reality is we're just not good at networking, right? We're not good at asking those questions. We're not good at breaking the ice. Obviously, it's daunting for anybody. It doesn't matter what field they're in, to sit down at some random table of people and go, "Hey, I'm so and so." Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never heard someone come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm so and so." So,
hey, how's it going?
It could happen. Hey,
what kind of mechanical keyboard do you have?
There you go. What is it? The cherry red key mechanism or
Yes.
the brown?
Yes. Are you a brown or a blue switch? Tell me.
By the
It's
way,
going to determine the fate of our relationship.
and I'll be honest with you, before 2019, I was totally uneducated in switch mechanisms in mechanical keyboards. I didn't know there was a difference. And now that I've been enlightened, oh my gosh, there's a world. Yes, if you've never researched mechanical keyboard switches, educate yourself.
Because you and I came from a time where we grabbed the IBM keyboard off the desk in some cubicle that was already a mechanical keyboard and was like, great, I'm going to use this one.
Yeah. And it's just, anyway, off topic. So, we could go off on so many side tangents, but I'm just thinking about all these young developers out there who are somewhere between 6 months of experience actually in their first job to 4 years in this entire phase of just everybody being separated and things shut down and these outlets haven't been there. And now everything's gearing up again. It's just waiting for a leader in a particular area to just raise the hand, get the word out and say, hey, programmers, hey, coders, we're going to get together for lunch over here. And we're just going to talk about stuff, or we're going to have a user group meeting. Hey, somebody's going to give a presentation, or we're just going to talk about that. Or, hey, here's a conference in Round Rock and let's just, hey, go there and we'll just, I don't know, whatever happens. It'll be great.
Yeah, I really hope that windfall happens. I mean, I feel like it's starting to happen again, and people are coming out. I mean, for a while it was, we will never do these things ever again. And I think now people are like, oh yeah, I kind of miss people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we should get together and go chat about that stuff.
Totally. Now you have so much experience putting together an environment where developers can network, meet other people, learn new skills, make connections, and you've kind of honed what works and what doesn't. And certainly having presentations where somebody gets up on a stage, okay, that has a place, but you incorporate some other things that you found to be beneficial. Can you talk about what those categories are that hey, you've kind of stumbled on and you like them and you're going to keep doing?
Yeah, for me, there has to be some, I'll air quotes say, inspirational piece. We do that in a form of a keynote. I think it's good to start the day with a bit of recentering and really thinking about why we're doing what we're doing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Why we all got into this field for a reason. We've all, well, maybe some have not yet, but you all go through some period of burnout, and somebody will work for somebody that they don't want, or work on some project that they just hate. And you need to step back and kind of invest some time and hear somebody kind of push you maybe in an uncomfortable direction of like, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a keynote for us. Sessions, that's typically what people think of as a conference, go to X number of things, on the hour, every hour. We will have, Texas will have 70 and Wisconsin will have 135 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, don't go to what you know unless there's a really specific like use case of something that you like really need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I'd tell you to go to things you don't know, right? It's a great way for a low investment to get a very broad set of learning, right? I can go and within an hour, I can get some kind of cursory level information about whatever the topic is at hand and meet other people who are interested in it. And so it's a great networking opportunity to walk into a room and go, ask the person next to you, hey, are you working with this thing? No. Okay, great. Me neither. Or yes, yeah, me too. Whatever the thing is. And, that kind of plus one's your network. And you may need that in the future. Obviously, there's networking activities. That's a great place to meet people and fun stuff like that, and workshops where you're going to get hands-on. But we also do this thing called open spaces. And this is, I would say, the exact opposite of a session. It's instead of it being a structured conversation that's planned out, it's the unstructured conversation that you can really have at any time, anywhere. And we see our role as being able to provide a facility that we can teach you how to have this conversation and then later on take it to, your own business or user groups or whatever. You can do them online, and we're trying to build a platform that does that online. But
Mm-hmm.
open spaces for us is, if I pick 100 sessions and there's 100 people, I guarantee that, somebody's not going to like all the things, or somebody's going to have something that's just burning I'll give an example. I saw a TikTok earlier today of a person who took a bunch of Raspberry Pis and made a server and
Yeah.
then and I was like, what? What is going on? But that's a great opportunity. Like for us, you could say, hey, I'm really interested in like people making servers out of a Raspberry Pi. And I want to talk about it at 2:00 on Monday because I saw this thing the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to go do it in Circle 16. And then anybody who shows up, well, they're interested in something. Maybe they're interested in doing it. Maybe they've done it. I've held open spaces to where we've altered the course of projects based upon the people who were there and the knowledge that they had, and they were like, "We're not going to go that direction anymore. We're going to go over here."
Mm-hmm.
So it's a powerful way for us to augment your time together when the density of nerd is really high. When there's a number of people, you have the ability to have a lot of unique conversations that just don't fit in the large format of, a room and a podium,
Mm-hmm.
but they fit in lots of little micro pods, if you will, all over the place. And
Yeah.
I really love it. We're, like I said, we're building a platform to do it online. I think they're all great. I think when you look at a conference, the cool thing about it is it's the collective, right? It's the sessions, it's the people, it's the experiences, right? That collective is what's so important.
Nice. Yeah. My experience has kind of mirrored yours, but we're kind of been in the industry the same period of time. Even the user group scene, just getting together with other people who are kind of doing things similar. It's the jam session. Hey, you play an instrument. Let's get together and jam.
Yep.
I think it goes for anything.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the best user groups I went to were the ones that were after the user group.
Yeah.
Like nothing, like the talks are fine. Like I always learn something. I've given many of them, hundreds of them.
Yeah.
I had a hell of a lot more fun after the talk.
That's right.
That's where the, people really got into the shit. I mean, hell, I think a user group session should be like 20 minutes talking and then 2 hours having a conversation about all the other things.
There you go. I prep my family with the things for, I'm probably going to be gone for, a 3-day stretch of time. You might see me if I'm sleeping, but I'm just telling, I'll tell you, I'll give you my hugs and kisses, for 3 days right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I say that too, and my family's there.
Right. You'll have fun. Yep. Well, so give us the URLs, give us the dates, and we'll of course include it all in the show notes as well for the upcoming ones.
Yeah. So thatconference.com, super simple to remember. If you can't remember that and you say what conference, just remember it's that conference. It's not what conference. Some notable dates. If you're interested in speaking, January 1st, we open up our call for speakers for Wisconsin. Wisconsin's held the last week of July. So this year, I think it's the 29th to the 1st of August. But in the end of January, we'll be in Round Rock, Texas. So January 30th to February 1st is our Texas event. And it's nice in January in Texas. So
it is.
If you want to get away this winter and you want to start your new year off right, then go to that conference.
And in Texas, the last week of July, you want to get away.
You're right. Which you go to that conference in Wisconsin where the weather is much more attainable.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, again, we'll include this all in the show notes, and I encourage the listeners, if you haven't gone to a, let's say, non-corporate conference, check it out, thatconference.com. And as well, if you aren't a part of a local user group, just search online and see if there's any kind of developer user group related to the stuff that you do in your local area, and just show up. Yes, you're not going to know anybody, but just show up and check it out.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, because I know you got a lot of people listening to this who maybe don't have the resources to come, or timing doesn't work, or some boss has got you boot on your neck about a project. Definitely find your user groups. Find other local code camps or conferences. Go find that tribe, and if you want to need help on how to network or make that introduction, you can find me on Twitter at the Clark Cell, and just ask the people. There are more than enough people that would want to help you grow your network.
Yeah. And for that conference, what's the typical ticket price?
We have two. We have one that's with food and one that's without food. So Texas, it's $600 and $1,000, $699, $699, and $999. I should really know the answers to these better.
Right. And
but
so
roughly $1,000.
And like you said, there's some people, it's like, I don't have that kind of money. If there's anybody out there listening that says, man, I don't want somebody to not be able to go because they can't afford it, and they want to donate a ticket, and they say, look,
that happens quite a bit.
How can they donate a ticket for somebody who might not be able to go otherwise?
Yeah, I think it's important to know, because I did say it. $1,000 can sound like a lot, but realize that that's a 3-day conference that includes meals. It's at a resort. Like, this is not we are trying to put together an event that rivals, a Microsoft conference with the same kind of put togetherness. That's a word. And, things have gone up over the years because everything seems to go up, from eggs to bad water. But yeah, it's a fun time.
So is there a page on the site? Is there an email address? Is somebody just itching? It's like, look, I want to donate a ticket. Who should they contact?
You can just email me, hello@thatconference.com.
All right. Yeah, we'll include that. hello@thatconference.com. Cool. We'll put that in the show notes too.
We're that conference everywhere. So
yeah,
if you can't find us, I'm either really not there or I didn't know about it, because I try to be everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And I know that I push on it because I know that there's people out there who have been in that position, and if they just see the opportunity there, I want you to tell me how many people called you and donated tickets, because there's, you're out there. People who, it's just, it hurts your heart to know that there's other people, who just, it's not going to happen.
And on the flip side, if you want to support or sponsor, call us too, because our event and lots of community events, whether it's a user group or meetup, code camp, whatever, part of the reason our ticket price is what it is because of sponsors. Like, that helps offset the cost of what these events do cost. So
yeah. So talk to your employer. Anybody can sponsor.
Yeah. I mean, and for a lot of people, they don't even realize they have a training budget. And a lot of companies have already budgeted several $1,000s for you to continue growing as an employee. So
Yeah.
we do have a template email on the website of how to request, funds from your boss and the different things to consider and whatnot. So it is,
That's right. If you don't ask, the answer is definitely
you.
No. That's right. Well, Clark, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing with us all you're doing for developer education out there. You've had a long track record, but yeah, thanks for all your experience and leadership and wisdom.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.